Good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever it is in the world that you are, and welcome in to the iFormula League round number 5 from Circuit Park Zandvoort here for the Dutch Grand Prix. I am your commentator, Alyssa, joined by, well, no one today, just me in the comms box. And, you know, I'm excited for the race. Race around Zandvoort. This is obviously the pre-changed layout. The one that typically we see ran, or at least we saw ran in more GT and sports car racing, as opposed to more of the Formula Series. But of course, with the changes made to Zandvoort over the years, that has now made it onto the F1 calendar. Can't wait until eventually iRacing rescan this circuit and get it back into the game. But of course, we are just on the start of qualifying here, and while the people are doing their first couple of laps, we'll actually get a overview on what the championship standings look like, so we can get an idea as what to play for today. At the moment, Riley and Oyvind are leading the championship for the Racing Lab team. They are currently 128 points from 123 points. And, you know, it's something that I look at as to a battle that's going to keep raging on throughout the season. Riley so far has definitely had the upper hand, but who knows, maybe Oyvind can start taking the fight back to him. Then we move on to, I'm pretty sure this is a rather large, group in this next four, because they're all racing for Intend, but of course, Hannes and Gianluca are racing for Intend flat out, and then Rowley and Ben are racing for Intend sim racing. So nice to see all four of them there together, and honestly really close between Hannes and Rowley. But of course, the story doesn't end there. We do have a couple of other drivers who are actually here today, who can take part in the championship. A couple new faces today as well. Of course, the race is going to look good. I think we currently have, if I can figure out a way to show you how many people are actually in this race, I'm pretty sure we're looking at almost 20 cars on the grid currently. Only 10 have actually, well, now 11 have set lap times. So it's looking like this race is going to end up becoming rather close, you would hope. As we all jump on board at the moment with Ben Goldthorpe, see what Ben is getting up to, see whether or not he can improve on his lap time, currently incredibly close to Alex Shanna. And I will bring up the gap to the leader as well, so you guys can keep an eye on that. Get an idea on how close everyone is to that pole position at the moment. It's looking like our pole position man is actually Gianluca Iliano, with Hannes Schlogel there behind him. So, although that does get immediately interrupted, Frederick Larson answering back with Ian Rude immediately jumping in there. Ian Rude, one of the new members for today, and he is racing alongside Kenneth Paul for one of the new teams. As off there, I believe, is John Smith racing again for one of the other new teams. I believe the one Ian races for is Scuderia Bisario? I'm going to pronounce it. Obviously, or Bisario, I think is how they're wanting it to be pronounced. It's effectively a subsidiary team from the Bisa Racing team. So it's just the Bisa Racing Junior team. And then Jesus and John are racing for, and I will just try to bring this up as it stands right now. Let me see. Arepa Racing. So, going to be interested to see what happens, of course, over the course of the next couple of laps and the qualifying session, see how it develops. And to go over a couple of the other sort of informations that people should know regarding this race later on today. After the 20-minute qualifying session, we will have our main race, which is a 36 lap race, and then a 11-lap sprint after that, with a 5-minute warm-up between each one, so it gives us a chance to cool down, rest a bit, relax, take it easy before we do it all over again. And then we have a week break, I believe. I believe that's right, anyway. Yes we do. We have a week break, so no racing next week, but we are back on the 11th of March for our next doubleheader, which is going to be the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, followed off by the Austrian Grand Prix at the Red Bull Ring. So, more action coming to your faces here on the IFL YouTube channel. As it stands right now, the qualifying is looking relatively tight in the mid-pack, actually. You're looking at quite a few drivers within that sort of 1 second off the pace margin. So we'll have to wait and see what they can do later on, as big lockup there. Not sure who that is. That's Ben Goldthorpe, so still not getting a really quick timing yet is Ben. Gianluca currently setting some purple sectors and having actually changed the livery quite a bit. Actually, a surprising amount is Gianluca. That is, yeah. That is quite striking. Quite a striking difference. As the cars will quickly be changing colours, while I just quickly see whether or not we have a couple of other things running around in the background. Trading paints needs to be up so we can actually see. Apparently, I got told off by the Bicers last week for making sure I didn't have trading paints doing nothing in the background. They wanted all of their pit lane liveries sorted. So, got to make sure that's accurate this week. But if you are in the chat, let us know, where are you watching from? Hopefully you are doing well. And currently it looks as though our gap towards the top. Now Riley Jacob has actually set the quick boy lap now. He's in there, the 1:11.1s, so very, very quick circuit. I'm wondering if anyone can get into the 1:10 10s. We'll have to wait and see. If anyone can do it, I'd imagine it would be Riley Jacob or his teammate Oyvind, but Oyvind's struggling a bit today. Maybe the good old voodoo magic is playing a part of that. I wonder if Ben Goldthorpe is currently improving his time. I wonder if he can really start setting a lap in now as we get to near the halfway point of qualifying. He's currently green in every sector, so let's jump back on board with Ben Goldthorpe. Let's get on board with him as he rounds the last couple of corners. In through the final corner then, flat out round he goes, opens up the DRS, maybe a little bit late. And that lap will put him in second place. So currently one of the fastest drivers on the circuit, alongside Riley Jacob, this man on your screens. You can see in the wheel, Riley has such a smooth driving style. It really does help in these cars. Almost makes it look effortless. And is it going to be effortless as he crosses the line? Is he going to dip into the 1 minute 10s? And not quite yet. 111.055. He's really pushing to get that 1 minute 10. Interesting to note that he hasn't got it yet, of course. You would imagine, I mean, with how quick he was looking, that maybe the 110 is possible. And I will say the qualifying time's ever close then as we round out the halfway point of qualifying, of course. One thing to note now the championship is starting to heat up a little bit is that with the new faces, of course, they might actually end up causing a bit more of an upset in the sprint race. Top 12 get reversed, so there will be a couple of drivers who will not be in the spot for a reversed grid. And is that going to spice things up, I wonder? Potentially new faces. New faces up near the top on the podium. Who knows where they might end up? Frederick Larson currently ahead of Ben Goldthorpe after Ben set his mega lap time there. Frederick Larson doing the same, answering straight back. So really close then between second, third and fourth. You could argue that fifth and sixth are also incredibly close to that lap time too, but maybe not quite close enough just yet. You'd imagine you want to be sort of within a tenth of the car in front of you within qualifying to really consider it to be super, super close. And a man who looks like he is absolutely in a league of his own, Riley Jacob, is just absolutely flying out there at the moment. Greetings in, Josh. Welcome in. Hope you're doing well. Currently trying to see if anyone can match Riley Jacob then. And once again, it's looking like, for some reason, Riley just seems to have it today. He's got the setup nailed, and there's no one out there who can match him at all, really. And I will say, Gianluca's livery is, it's rather striking. The yellow going back into the purple is two colour schemes I never thought I would see. But hey, it works, somehow. Evan Horgland then, coming across the line, where does he put himself? Puts himself second so far. So it looks like, once again, the Racing Lab team untouched for now. Riley Jacob setting a couple of purple sectors as he rounds out the final corner. Sprint to the line. Is he going to put himself into the 1 minute 10s? And indeed he does. 1 minute 10.7. So his teammate comes in. Gets 3/10 within Riley Jacob's time. And Riley immediately answers back and says, mate, I can go quicker than that. I was just sandbagging. And it's looking like the 110s are your target lap time now, because boy is Riley fast. That is an absolute worldie of a lap time. Compared to everyone else, I mean, we've got a really tight battle between third all the way up till 13th, you could argue, within 1 second of each other. And then almost a race for the front Riley Jacob and Øyvind Haugland clearly having some secret sauce in the setup to make them that much faster. It's hard work and dedication clearly paying off then. As Hanna and Schloger will improve their lap time, puts themselves P9 for now. 1 minute 12.3. And you would imagine that anyone within this sort of group between P3 and P13, if they can improve even by a tenth, they'll potentially get them up a couple of positions. Especially if you look at Rowley, if he improves by 1/10 and gets himself 1.3 seconds off of what Riley Jacobs' time was able to do, then he will actually sit himself up in P5 instead of P6 or P7. But speaking of Rowley, was he able to improve? He does a little bit, but not enough to jump too many spots up. Now puts himself in that almost awkward position there of being incredibly close to what Eystein and Jacob Bisa were able to do. As Troy Banks improving as well. Up to a 1 minute 12.1 goes Troy. So we're starting to get everyone putting in lap times now. Kenneth Paul a little bit further back, not having put in... Oh no, he has put in a lap time actually. Tell a lie. Currently the only two who haven't is Angel Ponce and John Smith. So 19 cars today then on the grid. Looking at Jesus now, putting himself a little bit further up. The driver out of Colombia, I believe. Wrapping the Colombian flag colours, so always cool to see some nice representation for your, you know, for your home country. So Øyvind Haugland still isn't able to really challenge Riley Jacob just yet, and with only 6 more minutes left of the qualifying session to go, let's see whether or not anyone else can. Frederick Larsen currently not setting any faster sector times for now. Really needs to start pushing if he wants to get in to that very, very quick lap time. Fun fact for you, just looking at the sector times, Riley Jacob on his last lap, which was a 1 minute 10.7, was 6/10 quicker than Frederick Larsen on this lap through sector 3. So yeah, that's currently how fast Riley Jacob is, and where he's finding most of his time is definitely down there in sector 3 and also sector 1 as well. Sector 1 seems quite a bit quicker than most people. Ben Goldthorpe improving once more then, but still not enough to challenge Frederick Larsen, so Frederick currently the only one, aside from Riley's teammate, to be within a second. Frederick Larsen improving through sector 2, but still a little bit off what Riley Jacob was able to do on that mega quick lap. And off there too early on the throttle, and that is one very broken car from Frederick Larsen. Wheels it all the way back off the track into the wall, and yeah, I don't think he's getting back out there again, at least not anytime soon. Troy Banks also, I believe, improving his lap time last time by. No, not quite. It looked like he was going to, but a couple of sectors that he was down were down quite a bit. So still P7 for Troy then. As Eystein Schiapolone pushes on, trying to find any more time, trying to get ahead of Gianluca. Of course, anyone who is in the stream, do let me know how things are for yourself. Hopefully everything is all good. Everyone's having a good time. Enjoying watching the qualifying so far, of course. We will have a, I believe it was 35 lap race coming up. And then after that, of course, we have a sprint of 11 laps. Sorry, it was 36 laps Grand Prix distance for today. And currently no one else really improving. We'll keep an eye on the track conditions, of course, see how things are changing. So far, 18C track and ambient, so relatively cold. So these guys shouldn't really be struggling too much for grip. 14km/h winds, though, is rather strong. Of course, with it coming immediately off the coast here, of course, at Zandvoort. Potentially making things a little bit colder than it really should. DRS open for Eystein then. Will Eystein be able to improve? Yeah, but not by much. 1 minute 12.07, still not quite fast enough to challenge Gianluca. As Øyvind Haugland may be the man on a mission at the moment, but seems to have made a little bit of a mistake. He was up in Sector 1 and Sector 2, and down in Sector 3, so I don't know if he made a mistake or something else has happened, but yep, back to the pit lane he goes. No more time to do one more lap, so Riley Jacob, Øyvind Haugland, Frederick Larsen then comfortable with their lap times. Maybe not necessarily the happiest in qualifying, but those who are in the pits now will not be able to get in another lap, so those drivers will have to sit back, wait for the session to be over, and focus ahead of the race then. As big spin there from Ben Goldthorpe. It was really pushing, actually. And I have just seen Jacob Bisa here in the dying moments of qualifying, setting a purple Sector 3. Going into Sector 4, how much down is he? And we will never find out what that lap time could have been. Unfortunate then from Jacob Bisa, because he looked like he was on a really good lap to really push and get a little bit further ahead of Frederick Larsen, but 8th it is on the grid for him. Speaking of the grid, let's take you through it then. Our grid, of course, as it stands at the moment, Riley Jacob and Øyvind Haugland locking out the front row for the Racing Lab team, followed off by Frederick Larsen and Ben Goldthorpe from Orion Racing and Intend Sim Racing, respectively. Gianluca Iliano there for Intend Flat Out Sim Racing, with Eystein Schiapolone for the Lumos eMotorsports team. Troy Banks then will pick up P7 for the Nox eMotorsports team, with Jacob Bisa picking up the first spot for the Bisa Racing team. Then further down the grid, we will have, as I went maybe a bit too many positions up, Rowley Schilter then for Intend Sim Racing, followed off by Hannes Schlogel for Intend Flat Out Sim Racing. Frank Bisa rounds out the Bisa Racing team's 8th and 11th place, with Jesus for Aripa Racing in 12. Alex Shanna starts P13, unlucky for some, but let's see whether or not that changes and Ian Rude picks up P14. Then we have Frankie Francisca there in P15, Danny O'Keefe P16, Kenneth Paul P17 with John Smith in P18, and Angel Ponce will round out your grid. So here we are then, as we line up on the grid. 19 cars here today. So we are expecting action all the way through. Riley Jacob, our pole sitter then, as the lights will start to come on. We go to the 5 red lights, and we are green here for the Dutch Grand Prix here in Zandvoort, and immediately action in the back, as there are some drivers who did not get a clean getaway. As moving into turn 1 then, we're going to see Hannes Schlogel try and go around the outside of their teammate, followed off by the Bices of Jacob and maybe Frank further in the background. I think Frank was one of the ones who got involved with an incident. Jesus trying an opportunistic move out the front, as immediately Alex Shanna then into the wall. Huge damage for Alex Shanna going into turn 3, and that is race over almost immediately there for Alex Shanna, locking up the brakes. And unfortunate for him, he is out. Further up the field then, Frederick Larsen dropping a couple positions off the start, not really able to push as hard as he would maybe want to, being caught by Rolly Schilter here. So Rolly may be able to look up the inside, maybe make a move, as we are here with our first lap almost done and dusted. Blink and you'll miss it, as immediately Rolly goes to the inside. A little bit of contact between himself and Frederick Larsen, as Jacob Bisa is chaos here in the background. Jacob Bisa, and I'm not sure who else is there. I believe that's Hannes as well. And I want to say yellow flag has been called, so that will be a safety car called out for the race. We'll have to see what happened there, as Hannes Schlogel was apparently the one who crashed. So here we go, on board with Hannes then. Brakes into the corner, makes the corner fine. Gets on the curbing, spins round. Another car goes with. They're in the middle of the circuit, and yeah, quite a few cars off, so that's what caused the safety car then. And I want to see what happened with Jacob Bisa. Jacob tried to go up the inside, actually, it looked like, of Hannes Schlogel. Let's see if we can watch it from TV cam from Hannes then. So Jacob, maybe not expecting him to be so slow, makes contact there. And that has what has brought out our yellow flag. So lap 2 of 36, we've already had quite a bit of carnage then. Jacob Bisa crashing for a second time as well, by the way, under the safety car apparently. Let's get a replay of this, and yep, that's a bit of an unforced error there. I'm not sure what the intention was with that one, but that was rather silly. Completely unforced, just drives into the back of him. And that will, of course, mean Jacob Bisa will probably be carrying damage now. I'd be surprised if he wasn't. Alex Shanna currently out of the race. Angel Ponce not starting the race either. As of course we have heard the old saying of safety cars breed safety cars, so maybe we're going to get some other interesting action here off the restart. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Of course, you could argue that that start was maybe a little bit too ambitious from a couple of drivers, but having the entire field then bunching up as we move towards lap number 3 of 36. And I'll imagine that the safety car lights will go off, so we will be green this time by. Riley Jacob probably just thinking to the safety car, hurry up, mate, my tyres are getting cold. As we do know, cold tyres on this car can be a pretty big handful. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, of course, on the restart. See if anyone gets caught out, as already more action in the background. As drivers are maybe a little bit caught off by how a lot of the people are trying to keep their tyres warm under the safety car here, then. You know, I actually think that the race itself, in terms of this car and its lap times, actually may be quicker than how fast the cars are in real life. I'm pretty sure. Obviously, we know sim racing is going to be faster, but compared to how the circuit has changed in real life, I genuinely think this version of the circuit is quite a bit quicker than how it is in real life. Of course, if anyone actually knows the lap times for the Dutch Grand Prix for these cars, do let me know. I would be curious to see just how much faster. Of course, I don't even know if these cars have actually run around Zandvoort yet. I believe they may have done last season, but I can't remember if it may have got cancelled, of course, with quite a few other real-world problems happening, of course. As to the green then, Riley Jacob will be leading us away soon enough. We will be going around the last couple of corners. Just have to get through the hairpin here. Or rather the chicane, and then onto the hairpin before Riley Jacob will lead us away for the start. He is in control of when we go, of course, is Riley Jacob, so up to him, really. As we go for green flag number 2, then. Second time of asking, can we get it right? Let us see. Riley Jacob already pretty far ahead of his teammate, actually, so I wonder if that's so his teammate can react to the start and isn't caught too far off. As the safety car will pull in, and Riley goes immediately then. His teammate even getting caught actually off that, so Ben Goldthorpe may be able to try and make a move, but we'll look further back then as Rowley Shilter will try and go up the inside of Troy Banks. Not able to really make anything happen just yet. Alex Shanna, actually, huge off then. Who is that? That is Troy Banks. Off into the wall as we get the restart made. I believe that was just by himself. I don't think he got helped into that one. That looks like it was a lock-up from himself there. And maybe some unfortunate voodoo happening on quite a few of these cars, as cold tyres mean this car is a much bigger handful than it was previously. So a lot of these drivers need to be careful that they don't overdrive just yet, especially on the medium tyres. Those tyres take a little bit longer to heat up, of course, than the softs will. So it looks like everyone making it through fine now until we look at Ian Rood, who is off on the side of the circuit once more. So more drivers having spins, and let's get a look-see of what happened here with Troy Banks then. Going into turn 3 we go. Spun around through turn 2, locked up the brakes. Was trying to sort of counter-steer away from it to not have anything bad happen, but that car, yep, unfortunately toast. And John Smith into the pit lane then, wondering potentially what for, as Frederick Larson, I have just realised, has dropped a couple of positions, I believe, off the restart. So once again, Frederick maybe not having the greatest of starts here. But we will keep on board, of course, with this battle for P4, technically, if they can catch up. Maybe even P3, if Eystein can keep up with Ben. The battle is on for the top podium spot. And maybe now, after lap 5 here, we can get some calm, some normality back to the racing, and we can hopefully have some good, clean battles as Eystein Schiapolone up the inside then of Gianluca Iliano. Gianluca still battling side by side with Eystein. Eystein having to shut the door. Gianluca off on the side of the circuit, and I believe manages to recover that one. So good job from him. Kenneth Paul entered the pit lane, by the way. Just a little update for you further down the field. There's huge off then. Jacob Bisa, I believe that was. I wonder what happened here from Jacob Bisa. Comes out of the corner. Too early on power, potentially. And off is Jacob Bisa. And that is one damaged car, you would imagine. So back up the field we go then. Frederick Larson gaining a position off of a mistake from Gianluca. Eystein Schiapolone currently still within the... Well, I was going to say still within the range of Ben Goldthorpe, but apparently not. 2.3 seconds then is the gap from Ben to Eystein. Rowley currently within DRS range. We will see DRS be opened, of course, and defensive driving already being made from Eystein, as up the inside will Rowley try to go and make it work. Indeed, he does. Rowley Shilter picking up that move nice and easy. Eystein not really able to fight back, and I believe that is very similar to what happened further on behind. Here we are, Gianluca and Frederick Larson. Frederick Larson trying to go all the way around the outside of turn 3. Is he going to be able to get the power down? Of course, if he can, then they're still going to be side by side. Gianluca lifting, letting Frederick Larson through. Back up into P6. Great defensive driving from Frederick Larson, having to defend from the move in T1, makes it work, and then immediately on the offensive, back again was Frederick Larson. So great job from him. Jesus trying to get in on this battle as well for the Aripa Racing team. And it looks as though the gaps are starting to spread out already then, as we hit lap number 7 here of 36 for our main race. And of course, those of you in the chat, let me know, who do you think is going to take the top 3 spots? Do you think Riley and Oyvind have it secure? Do you think there's going to be no commentator's curse, no voodoo, no nothing happening to them, and they're going to run clean all the way through? And is Ben Goldthorpe going to be able to do the same thing? Or do you think there may be some upsets? Some unfortunate mishaps later on in the race? Maybe a back marker gets involved, gets things happening that maybe shouldn't have happened. Let me know your thoughts, comments, of course, all appreciated, as we will watch on board then of this battle between Gianluca and Frederick Larsen. Let's see whether or not Gianluca can actually make a move here on Frederick Larsen. We'll have DRS, of course, as we hit the, I believe, second DRS zone around this circuit. I believe there are only 2. And immediately Gianluca then tries to go around the outside, which will turn to the inside of the next part of the corner. Has to make sure they don't touch, of course. Frederick Larsen just about giving enough room there. And the two will fight another day. Gianluca immediately answering back with DRS. Frederick Larsen's kind of just in the dust. Can't really do anything to fight that. Jesus going to try and go for the move around the outside. He was looking. Onto the grass was Jesus. Not able to really make the move stick. And, I mean, rightly so that you back out from a move like that, breaking on the grass. Not really what you want to be doing if your name is Jesus. So Frederick Larsen then, can he fight back? Can he get this position back from Gianluca? Or can they work together to maybe try and catch up to the back of Eystein? Of course, if they can do that, then Eystein potentially may be under pressure. Eystein currently dropping back from Rowley Shilter then. And it seems like Ben and Rowley currently really far up the road from almost everyone else. Or even sitting there in a little bit of his own planet. Riley Jacob also the same. So maybe now we look to see what happens with traffic, as Frankie Francisca then maybe trying to battle with Frank Bisa. We'll have to wait and see if this battle develops for anything more. DRS open for the Noxie Motorsports driver then as they go down the start-finish line. It looks as though Frankie Francisca not quite close enough to maybe make a move, but does set their fastest lap time of the race so far with a 1:15.0. So good for them to be able to keep going the way they are full now and really put the pressure on Frank here. The older of the two, I believe, of the Bicers. But of course, age doesn't necessarily mean experience. Jacob, you would argue, is usually the quicker of the two, but right now, Frank doing a great job at just doing what he does best and keeping it consistent, keeping it out the wall, and letting everyone else sort of fight for it. And that usually gets him a couple points, does it, for Frank? As Frankie Francisca then on Frank Bisa up the inside, nice and easy, I believe. Frank just sort of went, you know what, you're faster than me anyway, just, I'll let you go. And that was move done. Eystein Schippelen then on Rowley Shilter going into turn 1. Rowley braking really late there. And would just about get the car stopped. Eystein not really able to really commit to the move, maybe backed out a little bit, realizing they weren't quite close enough. So they'll go again next time by. I wonder if they're actually going to start catching up to any other drivers, as Hannes Schlegel and Troy Banks getting closer with the DRS assistance, of course, helping out on that one. And I believe Gianluca and Frederick Larsen still close, but Gianluca is actually pulling away at the moment from that group. Hannes Schlegel with a bit of a mistake is going to allow Jake Bisa to start answering back. Of course, Jacob Bisa, having had that incident earlier, I believe they get one fast repair, so maybe not the end of the world for him. Still able to push as hard as he can. Is he going to be able to make up a couple positions? Of course, wants to finish at least 12th, if not higher. Because if you finish 12th, you will start for pole position in the sprint race. And currently, his pace looks to be among the fastest of our top runners. Riley Jacob and Oyvind Haugland currently a second faster than everyone else, but still pretty quick then from Jacob Bisa. And of course, Riley Jacob doing all this without DRS assistance. So, absolutely mega quick lap times coming in from Riley Jacob. And consistent too, so you know Riley's going to be doing pretty well. As I actually want to see what happened with Kenneth Poole. Apparently Kenneth Poole has crashed. Well, there is the end of it. I'm not entirely sure what happened. Let's take a look then into the final corner, and yeah, just unfortunately gets washed up, hits the gravel, and if you've ever tried to turn an F1 car on gravel, you know it probably doesn't work that well, as Jacob Biester is going to try and fight his way past Hannes Schlogel. Not really able to find any openings just yet. With DRS, maybe he can go the long way around the outside. Of course, this will turn to the inside of the following corner, but gets the move done before the braking zone even. So that now pushes Hannes back into the clutches of, I believe that's Alex Shanna sitting behind. Indeed it is. As Ian Rude actually had a mistake a bit further up the road. Troy Banks managed to get past, so it is now Troy Banks, Ian Rude, Jacob Biester, Hannes Schlogel, all battling within the same section of track here for P11. Further up the field, Frank Biester on Roly Schilter for P9, as Gianluca Iliano further up, still battling with Frederick Larson, but Frederick, I believe, has dropped off a little bit now. And just as I say that, it looks as though Frederick Larson has dropped off quite a bit, actually. I don't know if he had a mistake, but it's now looking like Gianluca is going to be battling with Eystein instead. Eystein currently the car in front. I'm not sure who that other car is, but probably best to just get out the way. I believe it is a back marker, so it does indeed get out the way. I believe that was of Kenneth Poole. So Gianluca gets past and now can really start fighting for Eystein. A little bit of a lock up there from Gianluca, but nothing too bad on the tyres just yet. And this battle here, Gianluca with Eystein, it's going to be one that I imagine is pretty close. Of course, we missed quite a few of these drivers last round out, so really nice to see the grid starting to develop, starting to become full of life, full of battles everywhere, and it keeps things interesting, of course, here on lap 14 of 36 then. So almost at the halfway point. I believe lap 18 is where we will be seeing the halfway point, as Roly Schilter off circuit then. I wonder what happened here. Roly not able to turn already, so looks like damage from a previous lap may have followed him. So we had a spin here, which is why he lost so many positions early on. Then comes back on track. Car seems fine. And I want to say we're going to get another incident happen in the next corner. If not, potentially next lap then, going into turn 1, Roly Schilter turns into the corner. Car just doesn't turn as much as you think it would. And off into the wall he goes. And the lap after that, car understeering once again. Came off track. Tries to get back on track. Lights up the rear tyres and still making mistakes was Roly Schilter, so that is why he dropped all the way up from, I believe he was up near P4 or around that sort of area, all the way down to P14. as Ian Rude, Jacob Bisa, and Troy Banks all still battling very, very close together, as Eystein Schiapolone and Gianluca Iliano still also battling close together, although I can't see Gianluca anymore, so I don't know whether or not Gianluca has disconnected, but he has definitely dropped off. I'm hoping he comes back soon, as Ian Rude, speaking of dropping off, dips a tyre on the exit, maybe gets a little bit too eager on the throttle, and off the circuit is Ian Rude. So another free overtake then from Jacob Bisa, puts himself now back into P10. As Gianluca still dropping down the order then. Makes me wonder where Gianluca has gone. And I really hope Gianluca has not disconnected from this race, because that would be very unfortunate. He was battling for P4 on circuit with Eystein Schiapolone, so it would be very unfortunate if he has ended up losing that because of a disconnect. But he's definitely not appearing on my timing screens, so we'll have to wait and see if the timing updates. As Hannes Schlogel maybe trying to fight with Ian Rude, but not quite getting close enough with the DRS. Closest battle on track, of course, is this one on your screens right here for P11. This is the battle to decide who is second on the reverse grid. So it's almost one of those things, if you don't really want to game that other position if it's not going to help you in the sprint. And in terms of a points value, I believe we're actually pretty far off the... Well, I say far off the points totals. I believe the points go down to P10, like you would expect. I'll see if I can actually bring that up for myself, just so that I can try and remember. Because if that is the case, with Hannes quite far back from Jacob Bisa, maybe you almost want to think about just pulling back a little bit and trying to just chill. In our feature race, note points do go down to 12th, so you get 2 points if you finish 12th, where Hannes is right now. They're currently battling for a 2-point difference, so potentially does make the difference if you are in a close fight, as we know Hannes is at the moment. So interesting thing to note then is that points all the way down to the 12th position, and 12th position of course becoming pole for the sprint. And then our sprint point system is 12 points, dropping 1 point down for each position until you get to 1 point for 12th position. As I believe Frank Bisa had an incident that's pushed him a little bit further down then. Let's see what happened here. Frank Bisa locking up, just going straight on. And you'll see two cars go past him. That is Troy Banks and then Jacob Bisa. So unfortunate there for him. As Ian Rude into the pit lane then, halfway through the race, has gone, nah, get me off these tyres. I want to change them, get onto something new, and start pushing forward. Frederick Larsen actually coming back into this race then, as Eystein makes a couple of mistakes here. And I do wonder whether or not Frederick is actually going to be able to take P4. A move made into T1 then from Frederick Larsen. And he makes it stick, but of course allows Eystein to answer back. Eystein backing off as you go through the hill into turn 3. Probably wise to do so, of course. Don't really want to challenge too aggressively if you can help it. As old dear Roly Shilter has crashed one more time. What happens here? Is this the same thing we've been seeing so many other people do? Indeed it is. That is unfortunate. Locking up there seems to be very easy to do, and something that a lot of these drivers are repeating. Or something we hope that they can maybe fix and deal with as we go into the sprint, because that could cost you a massive amount of points. Roly Shilter not even in the top 12 now, so getting no points for this race, which means Hannes Schroeder will actually take a lead ahead of them, as Fredrik Larsen not able to fight back from Eystein, so sort of gives up the position, tries to get as close as he can through turn 1, but a bit of an opportunistic dive, you would have to think. Maybe actually lost himself some time being so aggressive. I do wonder, what is the strategy from Fredrik Larsen then? Do we believe that he is going to... Obviously he's going to try and go as late as he can on the mediums, maybe try and switch it to softs. I imagine that's definitely what the Racing Lab guys are going to have to do, considering they haven't had any issues doing so just yet. Riley Jacob is into the pit, so first man into the pit lane then Riley Jacob. iRacing froze for Gianluca Iliano, unfortunate for him. I was wondering whether or not that was an iRacing freeze or a disconnect, and we have got word now from the man himself. Very unfortunate. But hopefully he can get himself back in and at least go back into the sprint. It'll be much harder work, of course, going from a little bit further back, but still points on offer, so try and get yourself back in there and make up some points in the sprint. I'm imagining it's going to be pretty chaotic, so as long as you keep it on the track and you keep it safe, points will be had. So Eystein then out of the pit lane after pitting comes out P8, and I believe is one of the furthest ahead on track at the moment. Of course, discounting our race leader Riley Jacob, who came out ahead of Fredrik Larsen even with a pit stop. So yeah, it looks like the Racing Lab guys may have this one. Unfortunately, no action for the front of the grid unless some weird voodoo happens, but Eystein Schiapolone then, after coming out the pit lane, is going to have to start fighting through some of these back markers, or if Fredrik Larsen can extend, keep up the pace, maybe these back markers of Jesus and Troy. I believe this is Kenneth Paul, actually, so another actual back marker then, and that might actually benefit to Fredrik Larsen's favour, as Fredrik Larsen does come into the pit lane. Then we'll have to see what is his stop looking like, how quick is it going to be, is he going to come out ahead of Eystein, as who's that off to the side of the road? That is, I believe, Ian Rude. And I've just realised Fredrik Larsen has crashed as well. Lap 22. Is this too early on the throttle, maybe? Indeed it is. Too early on the throttle. Thankfully it doesn't hit anything. But that will be part of the reason as to why Fredrik Larsen is maybe further back than you'd expect him to be. As Kenneth Paul really should be getting out of the way of Eystein here. Being a back marker, you don't really want them in the way. And, well, Kenneth just did that himself by leaving the track. As Riley Jacob now immediately passed Ben Goldthorpe, and Ben Goldthorpe still hasn't pit yet, so pretty quick then is Riley Jacob, and putting all the pressure on his teammate. His teammate still having or still haven't pit yet. And currently lapping a second faster than his teammate as well, so unless Oyvind is thinking maybe the softs won't last all the way to the end, well, he's going to have to try something. As Fredrik Larsen now caught up to the back of Hannes Schlogl. Going to have to fight this one or come into the pit lane for a second time. I do wonder what has caused that decision from Fredrik Larsen. I haven't seen any incidents post that one we saw, but he came into the pit lane and only fixed damage, so this is a full pit stop then from Fredrik Larsen after having pit for just a repair on the previous lap. Oyvind Haugland then into the pit lane after Riley Jacobs sets the fastest lap of the race with a 1 minute 12.431. Oyvind comes out around about 10 seconds behind where Ben Goldthorpe was. So you lose around about 20 seconds here in the pit lane. There and thereabouts. As all of the rest of the drivers who haven't pit yet, except for Ben and Jesus, coming into the pit lane for the first and final time here in the feature race. And keep an eye to see if any battles develop, of course, within that. See if anyone can come out close to anyone else. Hannes Schlogl still needs to pit one more time, I believe, as does Danny O'Keefe, as does Alex Shanna, because they pit incredibly early on lap 1, and Danny O'Keefe pit on lap 6, so I wouldn't be surprised if they come in for one more time. I'm not sure they'll have the tyre life to make it all the way to the end, but maybe they try. Maybe they try. We'll have to wait and see. Strategy being a big thing that is developing now, so let's see who makes these bold calls and who can get some battling started. As now out of the pit lane, Ben Goldthorpe, you will see maybe a bit further up the road. If not, you can hear him going into T1, with Eystein following up around about 2 seconds behind. And then we see Ben Goldthorpe. So Eystein now has a target. Eystein can now see the driver ahead and knows that that is who I am battling. Frankie Francisca also thinking the same thing with Hannes Schlogl, who, as I mentioned before, Hannes might still need to pit one more time, so maybe we can see a development where Hannes comes out around about that P9, P10 range, and we'll have to wait and see what happens from there, although it's probably more like comes out behind Fredrik Larsen. There's battling going on then between Jesus and Jacob, as Jesus has just come out of the pit lane this lap. Jacob Bisa with the fresher tyres, or rather with the more warm tyres, forces Jesus into a mistake. Jacob Bisa gets past and he'll be saying thank you very much. That is the position gained, and I can now start hunting down Troy Banks. Speaking of Troy Banks, he is going to start trying to hunt down Danny O'Keefe ahead of him. Of course, Mercedes, please don't take us down. We tell all the drivers not to run the official Mercedes livery. For licensing reasons, we are not allowed to. So, slap on the wrist there for Danny O'Keefe. I just have to hope this doesn't get enough screen time to where Mercedes want to shut us down. But Troy Banks trying to look and make his way past. So let's see whether or not he can do so. If he can get past Danny O'Keefe, then they can move on and start battling a bit further ahead. Oyvind Haugland, by the way, Fastest lap of the race with 1 minute 12.196, so quite a bit quicker than what his teammate was able to do, I believe. Yeah, his teammate was a 1:12.43, so Owen Hoagland currently fastest lap of the race, and if he gets safest driver too, he'll pick up 2 extra bonus points, which will go a long way in keeping that battle between the 2 Racing Lab teammates close. So the goal then for Owen Hoagland is to minimise the amount of times you're getting an off track. Hope that Riley Jacob gets a few of them. And if you can keep it close, good on him. As Troy Banks goes the long way around the outside past Danny O'Keefe and makes that move look absolutely beautiful from Troy. Straight around the outside, no messing, and he is gone. He is released. With DRS assistance, you would have thought he would maybe have done it on the straight, but nope, round the outside of turn 1. Absolutely beautiful move from Troy Banks, and he can get moving as Jacob Bisa behind Danny O'Keefe then needs to set up a similar sort of move, you would imagine, or just sits behind and waits. There is a DRS straight coming up after the next corner as Danny O'Keefe just makes the mistake, maybe allowing Jacob to go the long way around the outside here. The DRS straight, of course, coming up, so with DRS, you'll imagine this move will get done side by side with DRS. Jacob Bisa then going into the braking zone. Danny O'Keefe still challenging it. Jacob Bisa giving respect, but knows he has the performance, and that is Jacob done and through. Danny O'Keefe dropping back a little bit further on, maybe those tyres a little bit past their best. Can't really compete with the soft tyres, the fresh soft tyres of the other drivers. As Troy Banks sets his personal fastest lap with a 1:13.822. You would expect so, of course, after having overtaken Danny O'Keefe in such a spectacular fashion. As we are on to now lap 30 of 36, so 6 more tours of the island to go. And of course, if you are enjoying the action, feel free to follow along with us. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications so that you can keep on board with all the action here at the IFL. Follow us along with the Discord as well, get yourself involved because this action is incredible, as often, actually, it seems is the case, at least in the F3 part of the league. The F1 tends to be a little bit hit or miss, but this week certainly has been all action as Frederick Larson now catches up to the back of Jesus. So good on Frederick if he can make this move done. Getting up into P10 is going to actually provide quite a few points. 1 minute 12.5 from himself, and Jesus, I'm not sure if Jesus just let that one go, but definitely made it easy on Frederick. And now Frederick Larson will be hunting down his teammate for the Orion Racing team. And I'm not sure if they're racing under Orion Legendary Racing or Orion Racing. So something to maybe ask the two of them at some point. And of course, for the Racing Lab team and Ben Goldthorpe, this race has been pretty elementary for them. They've just sort of ran away with it. So post-race interviews for our podium sitters are going to be sort of a bit of a nothing statement, I think. And it's just going to be sort of, yeah, race went fine, you know, we controlled the pace, did what we had to do, and that was sort of it. Going into T1 then, Jacob Bisa, is he going to be able to catch up to the back of Troy Banks? Almost looks like the car out of the pit lane maybe threw Jacob Bisa off, because it makes quite a large time loss happen under braking, even though he had DRS, of course, into turn 1. Now Troy Banks trying to hunt down Hanno Schlegel, but not really able to do it just yet. I'm wondering whether or not Troy Banks actually has a slightly higher downforce setup, because down the straights it looks like Jacob is absolutely wiping the floor with him, but in the corners Troy seems to be way faster than anyone else. DRS open, neutralizing the playing field in terms of a straight line advantage. In the corners, it seems like Troy's able to brake much later than everyone else and still make that move stick. Similar sort of tyres, I would imagine, on the two cars, so wouldn't be surprised if actually a lot of that is just from higher downforce. As move made then from Troy Banks up the inside, nice and easy. Jacob Bisa looking to try and follow him through, but not quite close enough just yet. Jacob Bisa maybe looking to the inside of turn 3 in the background there. Maybe have to keep on board with Jacob, see if he can get some opportunistic moves done. You wouldn't imagine it will come through here, but maybe. We'll just keep on board with him, see if he can find that move, see if he can make his way past. Up the inside then, late opportunistic move from Jacob Bisa, but makes it work. And is he going to pick up DRS? I'm not sure if he will. I don't think he was within a second, so he did get DRS on Hannes, so that is very surprising. I'm not sure if he picked that up off Troy or if he picked that up off Hannes, but interesting to note then that Jacob Bisa was able to make that move, get that move done, and continue to push on. He still has DRS on Troy, of course. 3 laps to go. Can Jacob Bisa pick up the P6 from Troy Banks? A very hard-fought P6 would this be. And Frederick Larson, you'll imagine, will just get past his teammate. Absolutely no issues into turn 1. His teammate not even really fighting it, as Frederick Larson dives way past the corner. Maybe allows his teammate to get through, but no. Nothing yet. As I have to try and remember to not show the onboards of the Mercedes with the Mercedes livery, because otherwise I might get shot. As Jacob Bisa continues on then. Still maybe trying to find a way past Troy Banks, but Troy has looked really quick in the latter half of this race, so it ain't going to come easy if Jacob wants it. Both drivers last lap incredibly similar, down to the 10th, almost down to the 1000th in terms of similarities. But now with DRS, you would imagine, now that Troy has no DRS and Jacob has DRS, we're going to start seeing that lap time difference start creeping in. But only a 10th quicker from Jacob Bisa last lap by. Troy Banks picking up his fastest lap of the race so far. 1 minute 13.7. And that's what he's going to need, is Troy to defend from Jacob Bisa. He's going to need those really quick laps to keep coming in, because Jacob is not letting off. He's not going to let you off easy. He's going to try and really push for everything he can. He gets so close to Troy here. You imagine with the DRS assistance down the next couple of straights, the move will be made soon. But it's got to happen quickly, because you're going to go on to lap 35 next time by, and if you can't find your way past, then unfortunately you'll be sitting in P7 instead of P6, and that's not what you want if your name is Jacob Bisa and you're dropping back here, which is not something you want to see. With DRS, you want to be within sort of 0.5 of a second to really give yourself an opportunity to attack into turn 1, and you see the difference in pace. Like, it's seeming like Troy Banks just is not really able to get there at the moment. As we do move on to the final lap then of this race, the final lap of our main event here, of our feature race, before we move on to the sprint after a quick warm-up. Jacob Bisa really close in this section of the circuit, but then you notice the higher downforce from Troy, it seems, really starts to pull him away in the middle part of the sector, the bit with all the corners and the bit that matters, the bit that you want to try and keep close to Troy in. Seeming like Jacob can't really do it. With DRS assistance, he's managing to keep that down within a half a second, but I don't think it's going to be close enough. It's going to be a drag race to the line, and we know how quick Jacob's car is in a straight line, so provided Jacob can keep up the car's speed through here, through the final couple of corners, Jacob Bisa drag race to the line on Troy Banks then. I think the line is too close for Jacob to really fight for it, and indeed it looks like Jacob Bisa will have to settle for a P7, and a very hard-fought P7 at that. But congratulations to him. As we'll jump back, further back, Frederick Larson picking up a P9, and I believe Frank Bisa gained a position there on Jesus on the final lap. So, good job from him picking up a P11 instead of a P12. And that will put him in second place on the grid for our sprint, as Jesus will be actually on pole for the sprint, which is going to be interesting. But Riley Jacob then winning in our first of 2 races. And after the results then come in for our first race, we'll get them up on our screen so we can see what exactly happened here. Riley Jacob and Oyvind Haugland taking home a convincing win and second place, with Ben Goldthorpe picking up a very impressive P3 that seemed untouchable, with Eystein Schiaplein picking up P4, Frankie Francisca picking up P5, Troy Banks picking up P6, so a nice haul of points there for the Noxie Motorsports team. Jacob Bisa picking up P7, Hannah Schlogel picking out P8, Frederick Larson and Danny O'Keefe picking out P9 and 10. Further down the grid then we go, Frank Bisa picking up P11 with Jesus rounding out the points, finishers in P12. And now, with all of that said and done, we're going to throw it to a quick word from one of our sponsors, Extreme Scoring.
Allow Extreme Scoring to do the work for you.
And of course, a massive thank you to Extreme Scoring for allowing us to do this in the way that we do it. And a massive shout out to all of our sponsors, Butt Kicker as well, of course. If you want to immerse yourself within sim racing, they are the place to do it. Capral Sim Racing, for any of your sim racing needs. Get yourself some of that high quality gear. And then, of course, Family Money, one of Patrick Olsen's, who's one of our, I believe, admins here at the IFL. That's one of his companies. If you have a family, you need to keep managing, you know, allowances and pocket money and all the rest of it. That is the app to do so. And as the warm-up continues on, it's been 2 minutes so far. We'll just sit here, look at the scenery as well. Look at how wonderful Zandvoort looks in iRacing, of course. Maybe needs a little bit of a rework with how it is in real life. But let me know then, who do you think is going to be out there and taking home our win of the sprint race? Do you think Riley Jacob can maybe come back? Do you think maybe Oyvind Haugland can do the same? And come in, pick out himself a couple of positions? Or do you reckon it'll be one of the people who finished P12, P10 or P11? I mean, they do start from the front row, so they will have quite a bit of an advantage. Let me know your thoughts and comments in the chat. I try to keep an eye on it as much as I can. Sorry about the silence. I had to get myself a drink. Just to try and make sure that I can keep my voice recovered, because I will definitely need it moving forward. Going into the sprint race, I believe it's going to be one that we're we're going to be shouting a lot. So prepare yourself for that one. It's going to be rather hectic, you will imagine. 11 laps around the Zandvoort circuit. We know Zandvoort itself, of course, is incredibly quick. Hello, Miriam. How you doing in the chat? Welcome in. You've just joined us for the sprint. Late to the party practicing for the F3. Well, it was a rather action-packed feature race. Action from start to finish. At least somewhere on the circuit, as we now go into our sprint race indeed. The sprint race is about to start. You've joined just at the perfect time to watch 11 laps of absolute madness. We had a safety car start in the first one, so hopefully this one's a little bit cleaner. Though, saying that, there tends to be a little bit more action on the starts of the sprint, so let's see. Let's see how Jesus, Frank, and Danny can do. I want to say it was a couple of spins, as Oyvind Haugland seems to not be on the grid.
Green, green, green.
We are green here then for the sprint race, and of course already massive action kicking off in the background. Cars flipping on the start of the on the start-finish straight even. I can't get my words out. Cars are flying all over the place further in the background, and it looks like already quite a few cars are off. Quite a few cars are out of the race. Riley Jacob, one of the notable names who is currently out of this race. Troy Banks in the wall, in the same place he'd been in the first race, also out. So already quite a few cars are out of this race, and it looks like Frederick Larsen was able to get a mega start from Frank Bisa and Jacob Bisa. Jesus also maybe a little bit slow on the start, but able to keep it clean, as is Danny O'Keefe. Frankie Francesca in the background of Danny, starting to really push on, as Oyvind Haugland is. Gianluca Iliano doing the same thing. Ben Goldthorpe trying to follow through. As that is very unfortunate of a start from most of these drivers. 11 laps to go, of course. So, all can happen, but it is a very quick lap around here, so these 11 laps are going to fly by. So those Bisas stand a chance. of picking up their first podium, as around the outside does Frankie Francisca try to go from Danny O'Keefe. Frederick Larson did the same move. Maybe Danny O'Keefe was ready for it this time, but unfortunately not. That is move done and dusted from Danny O'Keefe. Oyvind Haugland now trying to battle through, and Danny O'Keefe putting the throttle on too much. Hits the wall as well with the rear of that car. And that is him out as well. He's not getting back into this one. He's not going to be in rush hour 3. Gianluca Eliano still pushing on then, trying to keep up with Oyvind Haugland, as Frank Bisa being challenged by his teammate Jacob Bisa. I did say Jacob was one of the ones who is quicker. But careful, boys, letting each other through like this. Maybe you want to save that, because Jesus is still pretty close. And behind Jesus, you have Frankie Francisca and Oyvind Haugland, who are not slow in their own right. So maybe save the tactics and letting each other through for later. Unless, of course, Jacob Bisa is that much faster, in which case, with DRS, maybe Frank and Jacob are just going to pull each other along. As Oyvind Haugland then trying to catch up to the back of Frankie Francisca, but not able to really make anything happen just yet. Gianluca Eliano still trying to keep up with Oyvind, as Oyvind locks up rather massively there for the Racing Lab team. And once again, unfortunate result for Riley in the sprint, as we may have to watch back just what happened in that sprint start, because I saw cars flipping over and people on their roof and people hitting each other off of wheel spin, and I don't know what happened, but it was absolutely chaotic. Gianluca Eliano then on Oyvind Haugland. Is he going to be able to make the move? That is an opportunistic dive. Oyvind having to get out of the way and avoid it, tries to answer back and actually ends up making contact with the inside of Gianluca and drops back behind Ben Goldthorpe then. So not the result Oyvind is hoping for. Actually, if anything, it's starting to hurt him more. As Ben Goldthorpe maybe tried to look up the inside. Ian Rude maybe looking up the inside of Oyvind Haugland. And it's Oyvind being taken out by Ian Rude then. As unfortunate, Oyvind tries to get back on track. Drives straight into the side of Ian Rude. That is... our current championship leaders have been bullied in this sprint race, it feels like. Absolutely bullied. As Jesus has caught up to the back of Frank Bisa. This is your battle for third position. Can the Colombian driver get a P3 here? Tries to look up the inside of Frank Bisa, but Frank, with his experience, knows you're probably not going to be making a move there, really, unless you have a death wish. So we continue on then, does Jesus. Still trying to find his way past, and if he can do so, then ends up looking further up the field to see whether or not he can start battling with Jacob Bisa. But Jesus, really quick into the corner, hits the brakes far too hard, allows Jacob to, Frank even, to really just continue pushing on, as Frankie Francisca will continue trying to battle. And once again, I believe it's going to be talking to Riley and Oyvind now in the post race for the feature of unfortunate sprint, but good results in the feature, so your main points are still there. But in your sprint, we bring in Frederick Larson, Jacob Bisa, and Frank Bisa potentially. And we hear from Frederick Larson once again, who maybe had a little bit of an unlucky feature race, sprint race, but one that he seemed to be dominating in the sprint. So his feature race didn't go the way he really wanted to, but the sprint definitely going in his favor. as Jesus tries to go up the inside of Frank Bisa and once again does not make it. Again, another opportunistic move from Jesus, trying to go way too deep. Frank just goes, you know what, you're not really going to make the corner if you do that, so I'll just let you do whatever it is you're doing in the background. And eventually, you're going to be caught by Frankie, and you're going to have to be looking in the mirrors for that. So, for now, I'll just race my race. I'll allow Jacob Bisa to continue extending the gap, acting as a rear gunner then for Jacob Bisa, as we are on now lap... Well, we will be having done lap 6 shortly. This is midway through lap 6 for these drivers. Battle for P3 then really starting to brew, really starting to get close between a lot of these drivers. Jesus, Frankie, Gianluca, Ben Goldthorpe, all within half a second of each other. You can throw a blanket over them, they're so close. As I don't think Jesus or Frankie are going to be close enough, but watch for Gianluca. Watch for how aggressive Gianluca's going to be on Frankie Francisca. With DRS, though, both of them really not able to make any moves, so one more time we go around the tour as Frank Bisa still able to really hold on. So nice defensive driving from Frank Bisa so far. And if he can hold on, this will be, I believe, his first podium here this season. As Oyvind Haugland really still trying to battle out, as Jesus is all over the back end of Frank Bisa and really starting to pressure him as much as he can. Frank Bisa doesn't really want any of it and just sort of driving his line. He is soon going to be swarmed, though, by the rather aggressive Jesus and Frankie behind him. Gianluca also in the mix. Without DRS, it's going to be very difficult for any of them to really make a move. Gianluca looking up to the inside of Frankie Francisca then makes that move done, and Jesus, I believe, is also looking to make a move on Frank, and Frank just shuts the door immediately in Jesus' face and says, no, you are not parting the seas this time, my friend. The Bicycle Racing team will stay in P2 and P3 for now, but Jesus looks to the inside line then. We go down into turn 1, and this is where Frank is able to make a lot of his time. Frank is really great on the brakes into turn 1 and not as good as Jesus. Jesus loses a lot of time in T1, but makes all the time back up in the later part of the lap. So Frank doing a great job there defending. Only has to defend for 3 more laps then. And if Frank can do that, he picks up a very impressive P3. But Gianluca knows he needs to get a move on if he wants to get a couple points. If he wants to pick up a podium, Gianluca needs to make a move on Jesus and as quickly as possible. Well, the problem is, as you know, Frank Bisa is acting almost like a cork in a bottle here. The moment Frank gets overtaken, everyone else will go through and everyone else will start fighting. So Frank needs to keep that cork in, regardless of the pressure behind him. As mistake from Jesus then potentially cuts too much of that corner. We'll have to wait and see what happens here. If he has a slowdown, this could be huge for Gianluca. Gianluca then opens the DRS on the back end of Jesus. Blocks Jesus in, going into turn 1, makes the move on Jesus. Frankie Francisca also trying to make the move then out of the exit of turn 1. They go side by side up the hill. Frankie backs out of it, and unfortunately Jesus pulls off. Actually, Frankie Francisca also makes the mistake. That allows Ben Goldthorpe to go through. And now Frank Bisa has to battle a very hard-charging Gianluca. He's gained 14 positions so far in this sprint race, thanks to a very chaotic start. So Gianluca is very quick, we know that. Round the outside then of Frank Bisa. Of course, we'll turn to the inside of the next corner. Frank Bisa still battling around the outside as Frank. He's really trying to go for it. Credit to Frank Bisa where credit is due. He is really trying to make this work. He really wants to keep this P3, and he's going to get incredibly close to Gianluca, almost hitting into the back of Gianluca. Ben Goldthorpe now up the inside of Frank Bisa after the mistake, and Ben Goldthorpe taking the position, and unfortunately for Frank, that is him now down to P5. But what a drive from Gianluca and Ben Goldthorpe so far. picking up quite a couple of good positions. Gianluca picking up a well-fought P3 so far. 2 more tours of the island to go, though. Pressure still on. If Ben Goldthorpe and Gianluca battle together, and if they collide, if Ben Goldthorpe gets a bit desperate, then Frank Bisa still, if he can keep close enough, could maybe sneak away a P3 still. So it's not over yet. We have 2 more laps. Anything can happen in motorsport, and it usually does. Of course, Ben Goldthorpe really would like to get that P3, would love to have a P3 in the sprint and the feature combined. But you would argue that he's also pretty comfortable sitting in P4 too. If he doesn't have to risk anything points-wise, you could make the argument of why. Why risk it? But of course, he's a racing driver. He wants to get P3. He wants to fight his teammate Gianluca, and he wants to gain more positions. As we move on to the white flag, then Jacob Bisa and Fredrik Larsson having pretty much dominated off the start of the sprint. Gianluca Iliano having fought through what was arguably an absolutely chaotic start and picking up more positions. Ben Goldthorpe doing the same thing. As I want to see now whether or not we can get an idea on what on earth happened at the start of this race. So we'll get on board with Rolly Schilter then for the start of this race. So watch here from Rolly's point of view. Collides then with Øyvind Haugland, spins back across the track, and as you see further up ahead, there is cars flipping into turn 1. And I want to see if I can get an idea on who that could have been, as Eystein Schierpalone here then gets collided, flips, and sorry for those of you who are watching in a in VR, that is a very, very sickening sight indeed. So that is what happened. Fredrik Larsson, Jacob Bisa, and Gianluca picking up first, second, and third in the sprint race then, as Ben Goldthorpe picks up P4, Frankie Francisca picks up P5 from Frank Bisa in P6, Jesus picks up P7, Ian Rude P8, Øyvind Haugland will finish P9 with Danny O'Keefe rounding out the back of the grid in P10. And then everyone else is a DNF after the chaotic start. Really. As I want to see if we can maybe see what happened here on the TV cam when, yeah. Absolute carnage off the start there. Absolute carnage. But that'll wrap it us then for our sprint race. And once again, Fredrik Larsson doing a great job in the sprint. You know, I'll see if I can drag Fredrik Larsson in, and we will get an interview with him. And we'll do our sprint race winners. Fredrik, mate, a win in the sprint. A bit of an unfortunate feature race, you would probably have to say. But probably benefited off of the nice position for the sprint.
I actually think that I could have managed the podium in the feature as well, but I only had half an hour of practice beforehand because my plane was delayed.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So I figured, I think I qualified P3 and I thought, okay, this is going to go great. But then I had the worst start in my life. After that, I was actually doing pretty okay. And then I ended up behind... Who was it? I can't remember. I ended up behind a guy that
Eystein, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, it was him. And we fought a bit. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna go into the pit before him because the undercut is just perfect on this track. But unfortunately, he went in before me. So I just had to push everything and then I spun. And after that, I just thought, okay, let me go into the pits because I had lost the position already. When I'm in the pits, then I had forgotten to change the tire, so I went out on a medium again. So I had to pit once again, and after that, it just went down the hill. But yeah, I got the best start in my life in the sprint. So yeah, I'm thankful for that.
And even still, Jacob Bisa kept you honest in the sprint. It wasn't like you sort of just ran away with it and that was it, you know? He was still there if you made a mistake, but of course in the sprint you drove flawless. You didn't really have too much pressure to worry about it. It's not like he was actively sending moves every other corner at you, but...
No, I tried to keep it on a 2 seconds gap. So basically I was just saving a lot of energy. So I had the energy to just, pull away if he got too close. But then on the last lap, I actually did make a mistake. And he got pretty close in the end, so...
Yeah, 1.6 seconds.
Yeah.
One more lap and he may have had you, is what he's going to be saying in the commentary booth after. But, mate, aside from arguably a missed opportunity in the feature, you do end up taking home a win in the sprint, so congratulations to yourself on that one. And, before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
The guys on the track, they are amazing. I did get a warning for too many incident points in the practice, so I was a bit dangerous today, but the other guys aren't, so shout out to them. And shout out to Danny for showing up for once. He managed it okay. I believe he bought the car 1 minute before jumping into the session, so I think he managed to do fine, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good going for your first time out, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Danny on that one, then. And, as always, Frederick, always a pleasure to talk to you. And, now it's time to practice the F3 for yourself for next race out.
Yeah.
Which is tomorrow. And then, I believe I mentioned it on stream that we have a week break, I'm pretty sure, before the next race. I don't think it's next week.
I mean, obviously, I don't know. You were the one telling me last week that we were actually racing this week. So.
Yes, so we do have a week break before we go to Monza for round number 6. So low downforce setup, get that out.
Yes.
But always a pleasure to talk to you, mate. And hopefully we'll see you back this time. Next week not next week, the week after. At Monza, where...
Don't confuse me now.
In 2 weeks, we can... hopefully we'll see you back again. But talking for both a good result in the feature and the sprint.
Yeah.
That's the plan, anyway.
Yeah.
But cheers, mate. Now we're going to hear from Jacob Bisa, who finished second in our sprint, and then we'll move on to our feature race podium as well. Jacob, mate, you did it. Second place in the sprint. It's got to feel pretty good, right?
Yeah, it does. I think my best luck has been at this track.
And hey, continues on today. I mean, it was... I'm not sure if you were telling Frank to be a rear gunner there, but he did an absolutely amazing job at doing it.
Yeah, no, that wasn't part of the strategy or anything, but no, he did do a good job of corking the bottle there behind me.
Yeah. And I was saying how on the stream, obviously, you two got off to a pretty good start considering, and, Frederick Larson got away really well as well. You two were following through, and then it looked as though Frank was letting you by. Early on in the race, quite close to Jesus, was my initial thought. Was maybe you don't want to let him by too close, but ended up working out obviously in your favor. You were able to really pull away the gap after that, and Frank did an incredible defensive effort for you.
He really did.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, no, it wasn't actually the plan to get the pass done on that straight. We were gonna try and make it happen on the main straight, but I just was closing on him so fast. I was like, well, it's happening here.
Well, of course, it ends up working in your favor, and in terms of how you felt, obviously with the sprint, you got to be pretty happy with the P2, but in terms of the feature race, how do you think that went for yourself?
Oh man, that was pretty disastrous, wasn't it? With the 2 spin outs in the beginning of the race, nearly wrecked it coming over the hill, catching the safety car queue. That safety car really backed up the pack. And can't count all the ways I almost died, but managed to pull it out somehow, at least a finish.
What we need to maybe do is someone save the replay and do a Jacob Bisa almost dead count and stick it in the corner and stick it up on YouTube. See how many lives you had this race.
Seriously.
But yeah, I mean, you know, it ends up in a good result for yourself, as we said, picking up P2 in the sprint. But you know, was hard fought, at least in the main race. Some incredible action as always, and you know, I want to get your thoughts on how you feel like the grid has developed throughout the season. How do you think the grid is now compared to how we were at the start?
Oh man, it's improved a lot. I mean, the quality of racing's gone up since race 1. Even with all the new people that just joined this race, it's been really awesome to see the grid grow. And I think this is the most fun I've had in one of our IFL F1 races in a while, with 18 cars on the grid. That was pretty amazing. You know, I think if we can just get that consistency going, the quality of racing is just going to increase.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, there were a couple of drivers who raced last week who weren't in this race, so potentially even more cars on the grid then next time out at Monza, which is in 2 weeks. And I'm not sure what your thoughts are on Monza and how you think that's going to go, but spicy starts is usually the saying.
It really is. Turn 1 Monza and I don't have a great history, so I'm definitely a little nervous, but you know, we'll see how it goes.
Just got to practice the race starts, and hopefully you won't flip like some of the cars did on the sprint start.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I gotta figure out what's going on with that wheel spin.
Yeah, it's a difficult car to get the power down, but once you find it, of course, you can get electric starts. Maybe speak to Frederick Larson about it, seeing as he managed to say he got his best start ever in the car on the sprint race. See what he did.
Yeah, no kidding.
But
gotta pick his brain.
But of course, Jacob, always a pleasure to talk to you, mate, for the Bisa Racing team. And you know, before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, shout out to my amazing fiance Kirsty, who puts up with me doing all this racing and administrating of this league. Couldn't do it without you. And thanks again, Alyssa.
Yeah, absolutely, no worries, mate. But Jacob, we'll let you go. Celebrate that P2 however you want to celebrate it, whether or not that's with victory ice cream or champagne or whatever your favorite thing is.
Maybe both.
Yeah, maybe both. And hopefully we'll see you back out again in the comms box for the Italian Grand Prix.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
Awesome. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
And now we will pull in Ben Goldthorpe then to see his thoughts on both a really impressive sprint and a really impressive feature race as well. Ben, mate, welcome in. And congratulations, P3 then in the main race and almost P3 in the sprint as well. Bet you wish the sprint was just a couple laps longer.
Yeah, well, I'm just happy to reach the checkered flag. It was insane. Is all I can say about that sprint. I was lucky, the fact that I didn't get taken out. There's so many people spinning in front of me, and just kind of, it was just survive, get to the end.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you saw, but there were a couple of cars flipping on the sprint start, which was
Yeah, I think I braked and one went flying over me, and luckily he didn't hit me, but I think it hit Riley ahead of me and took out his rear wing. It was him DNF'd.
Oh dear. So maybe some luck going your way. Clearly Riley and Oyvind haven't
for the sprint.
Yeah, Riley and Oyvind haven't put the voodoo dolls.
No. Lucky they're going on each other, and I'm free.
Well, it worked in obviously the feature race. You picked up a P3, and it looked as though, to be honest, the P3 was sort of yours to take. It didn't seem like there was too much pressure, but if you feel like there was, you know, maybe there's some things.
not like damage limitation, but I knew I wouldn't have the pace to beat Oyvind or Riley, so it was just really not dying, just securing the P3. I think after the pit stop, Iceteen was a bit close to me. Like, I adjusted my pit because there was still the field spread wasn't really there, so I didn't have a clear gap to pit in, so I kind of went longer on the mediums. But I knew Iceteen would have undercut me then, but luckily I came out ahead of him and managed to stay there till the end.
Yeah, and as always, you know, you pick up a P3, almost picked up the P3 in the sprint, and, you know, overall, pretty successful weekend for yourself. You pick up quite a few points and even put a dent into the points for the Racing Lab team, so, you know, you're doing your bit for the Intent guys to try and really take the fight and hopefully push up a bit further. I believe that actually might put you ahead of a couple of your teammates as well.
Oh, that would be nice. I think it's just the sprint is where you really make the difference because it's so chaotic, and it's not a guaranteed finish, unlike the feature should be. So if you finish, you've got a very decent chance of making up points on your rivals.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we have seen it be chaotic, but I think it's a nice kind of chaotic. It's one of those, you know, you never really know what to expect, and of course, for me in the commentator's booth, I think that's absolutely amazing. I'm not sure how you think of it as a driver.
I think of all the tracks to have 19 cars on, Zandvoort wouldn't be the one I'd vote for.
Well,
but I'm sure the viewers found it very entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, in 2 weeks' time, we go out to Monza, and if we have the same 19 cars out, or potentially more, Turn 1's going to be a little bit spicy, I reckon.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to start from the pits. Turn 1 Monza sprint race.
Yeah.
There's definitely worse. I don't think there's any better places to be.
I mean, maybe maybe all the way at the back and watching everyone else suffer the fate, and then you can just sit back, get through clean, and pick up like 10 positions.
You still got the second chicane.
Ah, yes.
And then the last mode, so there's still plenty of opportunity to bin it. Especially when we're going to be running quite low downforce. I think it'll be medium package, but it just makes the rear so slidey.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's going to be interesting.
But that's obviously in 2 weeks' time, so you have quite a bit of time to prepare for it. But, mate, again, congratulations on the results you had here. And before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
I would say, you know, the better half, but she was here last week and I didn't get on the podium. She's not here this week. I'm a P3 and a P4, so, you know, stay away.
That's going to be the inside curse of your little household. If she's not around, you do well. If she's there, the pressure's on. You know, you gotta perform while she's there. But hey, you know, even still, it's nice that you guys have that sort of, you know, relationship that she can relax, know that everything's fine. You're gonna be back at some point, and I won't hold you any longer. But mate, congratulations again on both your sprint and feature results. It was incredible driving both. And hopefully we see you back again for Monza.
Yeah, hopefully.
Cheers,
we'll
mate.
See. Cheers. See ya.
And now we will bring in, of course, as always, it seems, we keep bringing in the Racing Lab team of Riley, Jacob, and Oyvind Horgland picking up the 1-2 in our feature race. And interesting results in the sprint, it seems like. I think is one way to call it. But
yeah, that was a disaster.
Yeah. I'm not sure if any of you watched the race start replay and saw the cars flipping, but it was interesting to catch on camera.
Yeah. I checked it out.
I saw it live because I had a car going over me very early. So I felt like Moses going through. But Jesus had apparently already gone through. So it was crazy.
I got around the first couple of cars and I'm like, all right, everything's fine. And all of a sudden it wasn't.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting sprint start. But, you know, in terms of the main race, I mean, what can you say about it, really? I mean, Riley qualifies almost a second up on everyone else. or even gets close, and then, like, you two sort of just pull away and that was it. There's not much really else that went on, seemingly.
Yeah, the main race was a bit boring. Did you see what happened at the end? Did you see me celebrate too early?
No. I don't think we caught that.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank God. There was 2 laps to go, and I parked it on the in the right after the pit exit, thinking that it was over.
Ah.
Oh, okay.
I just asked if he went to the garage yet. If he towed in, that would be very beneficial for me.
I was going to say the voodoo doll works in...
Yeah, but
well...
this voodoo doll, it's got opposite effects. So I've thrown it away.
Okay.
I need to come up with something new.
Well...
And I kicked the shaman's ass. So I don't know where to go from here.
I would offer advice, seeing as I have a touch with the commentators cursing, but that seems to have stopped as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I think all the powers of cursing have seemed to be failing now. And people are just driving how they should, and things are going great. So...
Yeah, after speaking to the other drivers, I'm now open up for orders. Just DM me on Discord, and I'll make voodoo dolls for everybody, and everybody gets quick.
Or everybody starts spinning.
Yeah,
exactly.
One or the other. We don't know what it's going to be yet. We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be a different result for everyone.
Yeah.
But of course.
But it was a fun race though. But it didn't get that interesting though. So.
Well, at least not in the main race. The sprint was definitely things maybe to look at and consider. And maybe the admins and the stewards are going to have a lot of interesting comments after the race.
What was up with the safety car?
I don't actually know.
That was my first time ever experiencing a safety car.
Yeah, so apparently, from what I remember, at least from leagues before, there used to be an auto safety car system, and that system would trigger if a certain amount of cars were off in one corner or a certain amount of incident points were reached in one lap. And with how the sprint race start was, combined with loads of people then spinning on the chicane, it brought out the safety car. I'd imagine, at least for the feature, at least it was probably the spins of the chicane. Why it didn't happen for the sprint, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because that was a lot of incident points in a short amount of time, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Some weirdness happening.
That safety car restart was dodgy. Everybody's battery was drained. Everybody's tires were freezing.
Well, we do it to make it more interesting, you see. We try to have more action.
More spins.
That was crazy. It's always fun to do this league with. You never know what's gonna happen, and the sprint race they got really interesting really fast, and that was a lot of fun. Even met Ian in turn 1. He dive bombed me from 3 kilometers back at some point there. That was hilarious. So I had to give him back when we crossed the line.
Yeah. But hey guys, I mean, as always, you guys do really well in the main race, and it seems to be a coin flip in the sprint on whether or not you can get a clean enough start.
Yeah, pretty much.
But
it's a lot of fun. Thank you guys for hosting this. It's so cool.
But as always, mate, is there anyone else you guys want to give a shout out to before we let you go?
I want to give a shout out to Jesus, best name on the grid, and on fire. Now it's cool to see that many new people. So that's really cool, and I look forward to the next race. And thank you so much for hosting this league. It's very fun, and I'm a bit scared if Frederick gets more than 30 minutes practice. I think it's gonna be a menace out of track.
Yeah, he is pretty quick.
For sure. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely no worries. And Riley, any final thoughts? Anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, pretty much just echoed what Oyvind said. Hopefully, we can get more people in the league and make this even bigger, more chaos.
Hey, maybe we can even start a full grid reverse for the sprint.
Oh yeah.
Then we need a longer race.
Yeah.
2 sprint races.
I mean, that would be interesting, but then, you know, we'd be racing forever.
I don't see the problem.
Safety cars after every spin.
Yeah. That would just be safety cars on safety cars, and the race would never end. But yes, boys. Anyway, we'll let you head off. I need to close off the stream as well. It's been fun, as always. And hopefully we'll see you guys again in 2 weeks where we hit Monza. So, spicy starts all around again.
Oh, look forward to turn 1.
But
see you around.
Cheers, boys. And that'll just about wrap it up here from us in the IFL. Of course, as always, if you enjoyed everything that happened, feel free to follow along with the socials. You have the Discord links, the website, of course, as always, and that'll do it. One more time we go around the clock. One more time we go back around racing. And again, stay tuned for the F3 for the Goon Squad channel. That will happen tomorrow. If you can't wait for more action, of course, tune into that one. And then 2 weeks later, we come back for Monza. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it.